The moment the cabin door closed, Marcus Coleman felt it. Not turbulence, not fear of flying. It was the feeling of being watched. The business class cabin was quiet in the way expensive spaces often were, polite, restrained, carefully distant. Soft lighting glowed above wide leather seats. Jackets were folded neatly. Laptops were already open. Conversations were hushed, important sounding, unfinished. This was a place where people believed money insulated them from discomfort. Marcus adjusted his seatbelt and glanced toward the window. Clouds drifted lazily outside, white and endless. He took a slow breath, reminding himself that this was just another flight, another meeting, another city. He had earned this seat. 10 years earlier, he'd been riding buses at dawn, carrying prototypes in a backpack, pitching ideas to rooms that smiled politely and said no. Now, his company employed over 200 people. His calendar was full weeks in advance. His suit wasn't borrowed. His watch wasn't fake. His ticket was paid for full fare, business class. Still, the feeling lingered. Across the aisle, a white man in a gray suit studied Marcus openly, then looked away when their eyes met. Behind Marcus, two executives whispered, their voices dropping when he turned slightly. None of it was overt. None of it was loud. That was how it always worked. A flight attendant named Laura moved briskly down the aisle, heels clicking softly against the floor. Her smile was sharp and efficient, the kind meant to manage, not welcome. She stopped beside Marcus's seat and glanced at her tablet. "Sir," she said. "Yes," Marcus replied, looking up. "May I see your boarding pass?" Marcus blinked. "I already scanned it at the gate. I need to verify it again," she said, her tone firm. Marcus reached into his jacket, retrieved the pass, and handed it over. Laura examined it longer than necessary, her brow tightening. "This seat is reserved for premium passengers," she said. Marcus held her gaze. "I am a premium passenger." Laura tilted her head slightly. "This seat is usually assigned to our elite business members." Marcus felt a familiar heat rise in his chest. "I purchased this seat." She tapped her tablet. "According to our system, I paid for this seat," Marcus repeated, slower now. The gray-suited man across the aisle shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. Laura sighed. "Sir, if there's been a mistake, we can move you to economy until we sort it out." "Move me," Marcus said quietly, "to a seat I didn't pay for." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "There's no need to make this difficult." That sentence landed harder than any insult. Marcus glanced around. Other passengers were watching now, curiosity flickering across their faces. No one spoke. "I'm not being difficult," he said. "I'm sitting in the seat I paid for." Laura straightened. "I need you to cooperate, and I need you," Marcus replied, "to treat me like every other passenger in this cabin." Her eyes flashed. She turned sharply and walked toward the front of the plane. The silence she left behind was louder than the engines. Minutes passed. Then more. Marcus tried to focus on his breathing, on the meeting ahead, on anything but the tight knot forming in his stomach. He had been here before: restaurants, hotels, boardrooms, places where he belonged, yet somehow always had to prove it. Laura returned, this time with a senior attendant and two men in dark suits, air marshals. A ripple of unease moved through the cabin. The senior attendant spoke first. "Sir, there appears to be an issue with your seating." "There isn't," Marcus said. "I paid for this seat." Laura crossed her arms. "He's refusing to cooperate." Marcus looked at her. "I'm refusing to be displaced." The senior attendant glanced at Laura, then at the marshals. "Sir, please stand up." "For what reason?" Marcus asked. "So we can resolve this." Marcus shook his head. "You can resolve it right here. Check the ticket. Check the system." The gray-suited man across the aisle leaned forward. "Why don't you just do what they're asking?" he muttered. "You're holding everyone up." Marcus turned toward him. "Funny how no one says that when someone else is questioned." The man looked away. Laura's voice rose. "This airline does not tolerate disruption. If you don't comply, you will be removed." "Removed," Overt echoed. "I own this airline," a white executive near the front snapped suddenly, standing halfway from his seat, "and I don't want him on this plane." The cabin froze. Marcus stared at the man, disbelief mixing with something colder. The executive's face was flushed with irritation, entitlement radiating off him like heat. You own the airline, Marcus repeated calmly. Yes, the man said. And I decide who flies. No one corrected him. No one challenged the claim. The senior attendant shifted uncomfortably. The marshal stepped closer. Marcus stood slowly, careful, deliberate. I have done nothing wrong, he said, and you know it. Laura gestured sharply. Escort him off. Hands closed around Marcus's arms. Gasps rippled through the cabin. Wait, a woman near the window said softly. I saw his boarding pass. It said business class. The senior attendant hesitated. Ma'am, please remain seated. Another voice joined in. This isn't right. Then another. Alicia, the system. The pressure on Marcus's arms tightened. He didn't resist. He refused to give them that. As they walked him down the aisle, eyes followed, some shocked, some satisfied, most silent. Phones stayed tucked away. No one filmed. No one intervened. At the aircraft door, the captain appeared, confusion etched across his face. What's going on? Passenger refusal, Laura said quickly. Marcus met the captain's eyes. I paid for my seat. They never checked. The captain frowned. Did anyone verify the ticket? Laura opened her mouth. The senior attendant finally spoke. We didn't complete that step. The captain took the boarding pass from Marcus's hand and scanned it. A beep, green, business class. Seat confirmed. The air shifted. The executive scoffed. Well, he still made a scene. Marcus let out a slow breath. No, you did. The captain handed the pass back. Sir, I apologize. Laura's face drained of color. You're welcome to return to your seat, the captain said. Marcus looked at the cabin, at the people who had watched him be humiliated, at the man who claimed ownership over space he didn't create. No, Marcus said quietly. I'm not. Silence fell again. I won't sit where my presence is treated like a problem, he continued. I won't reward this behavior with my silence. He turned toward the door. The woman who had spoken earlier stood. I'm sorry, she said to him. This shouldn't have happened. Marcus nodded. Thank you for saying something. As he stepped off the plane, the jet bridge felt colder than the cabin, but lighter somehow. His phone buzzed with missed calls, emails. The world still needed him. Behind him, the plane remained grounded, because for once the delay wasn't weather, it was truth. And as Marcus walked away, head high, he knew something important had happened, not just to him, but to everyone who witnessed it. They had seen how easily authority could be weaponized, how quickly silence became complicity, and how dignity, once challenged, demanded a response. The engines would roar again soon, but the moment would stay, because racism didn't need shouting crowds. Sometimes it only needed a seat number on the audacity to say, you don't belong here. The jet bridge echoed with the hollow sound of Marcus's footsteps as he walked away from the aircraft. Each step felt heavier than the last, not because he doubted his decision, but because he understood its cost. Choosing dignity over convenience always came with consequences people rarely talked about. Behind the closed aircraft door, chaos quietly unfolded. Passengers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some stared straight ahead, pretending nothing had happened. Others whispered, the earlier confidence in their voices replaced with uncertainty. The gray-suited man rubbed his temples, suddenly aware that his silence had not protected him from discomfort, had branded him with it. Laura stood rigid near the galley, her arms trembling despite her effort to keep them crossed. She replayed the moment over and over, the boarding pass, the challenge, the executive's voice cutting through the cabin. She told herself she'd followed procedure. She told herself she'd been doing her job. But the green confirmation light from the scanner burned in her mind. The senior attendant leaned toward the captain. We're going to need to file a report. The captain nodded grimly. And so are they. At the front of the cabin, the executive who had claimed ownership of the airline sat back down, his confidence eroding under the weight of stares he could no longer control. He wasn't the owner. Everyone knew that now. But no one said it aloud. They didn't need to. His authority had dissolved the moment truth entered the conversation. Still, the damage was done. On the jet bridge, Marcus paused, near a window overlooking the tarmac. Planes taxied slowly, obedient to unseen signals, moving only when allowed. He watched them for a moment, then closed his eyes. He thought about his father, who used to wear his best suit just to fly economy, believing respect was something you dressed for. He thought about his mother, who taught him to keep receipts, confirmations, proof because someone would always ask him to justify his presence. He had done everything right, and it still hadn't been enough. The gate supervisor approached him cautiously. "Sir, we're very sorry about what happened. We can rebook you immediately. First available flight. Complimentary upgrade." Marcus opened his eyes. "That's not the point," she nodded, though it was clear she didn't fully understand. Nearby, a young airline employee watched from behind the counter. She couldn't have been older than 22. Her eyes followed Marcus with something like awe. She had seen plenty of arguments at gates angry passengers, entitlement, shouting, but this had been different. Quiet, controlled, unavoidable. When Marcus turned to leave, she spoke before she could stop herself. "Sir," he looked at her, "I just wanted to say, I saw what they did, and I'm glad you didn't pretend it was okay." Marcus studied her face, then smiled faintly. "So am I." Back inside the aircraft, the delay stretched on. Passengers grew restless, not because of time, but because of the discomfort no announcement could smooth over. Finally, the captain spoke over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate your patience. We experienced an internal issue that required immediate attention. We will be departing shortly." Internal issue. Some passengers exchanged glances, others looked down. Laura remained silent, her earlier authority replaced by a weight she hadn't expected to carry. For the first time, she questioned how many times she'd trusted her instincts without examining where they came from. How often professionalism had been shaped by prejudice she'd never been forced to confront. The woman who had spoken up earlier leaned toward the aisle, addressing no one in particular. He deserved better. No one argued. The plane finally pushed back from the gate, engines roaring to life. As it lifted into the sky, the city fell away beneath it, neat and distant, as if nothing extraordinary had occurred. But something had. Miles away, Marcus sat in a quiet corner of the terminal, laptop open, coffee untouched. Emails poured in. Calls followed. He explained, briefly, professionally. He did not embellish. He did not apologize. By the time his phone buzzed again, the story had already started spreading. A passenger had posted about the delay, another had mentioned why. Names weren't shared yet, but the outline was clear enough. A black businessman, a business class seat, authority used without verification, removal without cause. Marcus closed his laptop and leaned back. He knew what came next. Corporate statements, investigations, carefully worded apologies that focused on miscommunication instead of harm. He had seen this pattern before, but he also knew something else. The silence had cracked. Somewhere on that plane, a teenager had watched an adult choose dignity over comfort. Somewhere in that cabin, someone had felt the sting of recognizing themselves on the wrong side of a moment. Somewhere, a line had been crossed and noticed. Later that evening, Marcus boarded another flight, a different airline, same sky. As he took his seat business class again, no one asked for his boarding pass twice. No one questioned his presence. The flight attendant smiled warmly, offered him water, and moved on. It was how things should have been all along. Yet Marcus knew the ease didn't erase what had happened earlier. It only highlighted how unnecessary it had been. As the plane ascended, he looked out the window once more. Clouds stretched endlessly, soft and indifferent. Above them, the sky remained wide enough for everyone. No seat assignments, no barriers. He thought about the executive S words, "I owned this airland," felt a quiet resolve settled in his chest. Ownership wasn't about titles or power. It was about accountability, about who bore the cost when harm was done. Marcus pulled out his notebook and wrote a single sentence, underlining it twice. Belonging should never require permission. When the seatbelt sign turned off, he closed the notebook, finally allowing himself to rest. The flight moved forward smoothly, unaware that elsewhere, emails were being drafted, meetings scheduled, explanations demanded. The airline would move on, the passengers would move on, but the moment would linger. Because every so often, injustice didn't end with shouting or spectacle. Sometimes, it ended with a man standing up calmly, refusing to accept a lie, and walking away so others would be forced to face it. And that kind of departure echoed far longer than any engine ever could.